I hated reading. It was one of the things that I would try to avoid doing as often as possible. I hated reading because I wasn't very good at it. I was slow, and it took me longer than everyone else, and I didn't really enjoy it. And teachers kept saying that Mads is a visual learner, he works better with things that he can see. Not everyone learns the same way, which is obviously true, but I think that got me thinking that reading was just something I would never excel at or never enjoy and never do for fun. Now, I read a book every single week, almost. Sometimes I read 2 books a week, sometimes it takes me 2 weeks to read a book. So on average, I read about a book a week, and I absolutely love it, and I would recommend it to everyone. I mostly read nonfiction because I really want to learn. I get my entertainment, if you can call it that, from TV shows and films and YouTube. It's all with one purpose: to try and learn more and grow as a person and be able to draw from different areas of knowledge to do what I want to do as best as I can do it. So reading about evolution has absolutely nothing to do with filmmaking, but there are still things that cross over, and you're still able to take things that you learn from one subject and kind of adjust them slightly to be able to use them in a really effective way in a completely different subject. I think for me, the main thing was realizing that if someone has taken, months or even a year or years to write something, there has to be a certain level of truth to what is being written, or at least the person writing it had to really believe in what they were writing in order to spend that amount of time and effort doing it. Unlike today, where you can go online, you can find news articles, things that were written in an afternoon, in 20 minutes, or even like a Facebook post that was written in a couple of minutes, and people think that that is what's actually happening, or that's truth, or that's some kind of evidence, and that information is valid. I think that could be a really dangerous way to think, because it's so easy to hear one thing and then quickly think that that's what's actually going on, and then to say it yourself and not really think about, well, how does that person actually know what they're saying, or where did that information come from? Taking that very important extra step to make sure that the source is a valid source and that you can trust it. And so books are just such a great way to learn. I have a couple of tips for how to begin reading more. First of all, set aside time during the day, a specific time, the same time every day, where you want to read. I wake up early so I can do this. It's part of my morning routine, and I read for an hour every single morning. I've now also recently started listening to audiobooks, which is just blowing my mind, to be honest. I do that when I'm doing anything that doesn't really require my immediate focus or attention. Listening to audiobooks is such a powerful way to read at times when you would otherwise not really be doing anything. So when you're commuting, or when you're doing the dishes, or when you're going for a run, or working out, or doing something that's a little bit mundane that doesn't require immediate focus or attention, you can be reading. That's amazing. You can just get through so much content and retain so much of it. But there is something really satisfying and I think important about having a physical book that you can sit down, kind of shut off from everything else, turn off your phone, just take a little bit of time to relax and read a book and engage with the content in a different way than when you're just listening to it. I think I'm never going to stop actually reading physical books. Being a slow reader, I got really into the idea of learning how to read faster. So for every single book I read, I feel like I just become better at what I do. I learn a new idea or a new way of thinking, or I learn things about the world that I hadn't learned before that just give me a completely different perspective of what I'm doing. So I really wanted to read as much as possible, as fast as possible, but while still retaining the information. So I got really interested in the idea of speed reading. And you want to be doing this separately from when you're actually reading, because it's going to be a little bit more difficult to retain what you're reading at first. And it's almost like if you're training for a marathon, you want to be training at a slightly faster speed than when you run the marathon, so that when you run the marathon, it feels really comfortable to slow down and run at a slower pace, because the entire time you've been practicing running at a faster pace. It's a little bit the same with this. The idea is to kind of force yourself to read faster than you feel like you can comprehend what's happening. The way that I do that, and the way that works really well, is to actually use your finger, as silly as that may look, to read with. So where your finger is where you're going to be reading, and you're going to try and force the pace by moving the finger faster than you feel like you can read. The only rule is to just never slow down your finger. You'll start to notice that you're actually comprehending a lot more than you think you are, even though you feel like you're missing out on quite a few words because you have to skip over them as you go. The way that the eye works is that it actually makes a series of jumps from word to word. The eye doesn't move in a smooth motion. So even though we feel like we're looking at each word one at a time as the eye goes through it, what we're really doing is we're kind of jumping through the page, but our eye picks up what's in between that, and we actually comprehend what we're seeing. And then when you slow down and read at what's a normal speed, you'll find that you're actually reading a little bit faster than you did before. So the second tip takes advantage of the same concept, that your eye actually comprehends a lot more than you think. It doesn't need to actually physically look at a word to be able to comprehend it when it glances at a page. The tip that I came across is to actually make 2 lines in your book about 2 to 3 centimeters in from the side of the page. The rule is to then only look at the words that are in the middle between the 2 lines. This is going to feel really odd at first. You're going to feel like you want to look at the words that are outside of the lines, because otherwise how can you understand it? But trust me and just try it. You start to realize that you're actually understanding what's being said, even though you might not be physically reading everything that's on the page. So I know this video is really short, but I am currently filming in New York City as a cinematographer on a feature-length film, so I've had to make these videos before I left so that I wouldn't not upload for an entire month. So while this channel is obviously focused on filmmaking and adventure and things like that, I think it's really important to include content like this, because it's so important for anyone who's trying to grow as a person and who doesn't want to stop learning to be aware of where they're getting their information from, and to just realize that they can keep learning. There's so many things that you don't know. Even if you think you know everything in one subject, you can learn a whole new subject and gain a different perspective on what it is you already know. So comment below what your favorite book is. I think one of my favorite books is probably Sapiens, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Alright, see you next time. Bye.